Now you got the voice. Every time.
It was going. I'm just telling you, it was going.
All right. Wait. How do we start this again? Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Chris.
And I'm Alan Chatney.
And this is the Source Points podcast where we talk about everything geoscience, news, oil industry stuff, movies, music, TV shows, a little bit of audiobooks last time.
We got into audiobooks with Mr. Ellison, didn't we?
We did.
Dennis was a great guest. By the way, we had really good response to Dennis's presence here.
Great.
It was very well received.
Cool.
And today we have a returning guest in Jonathan Banyard.
Hello.
And a brand new guest in the form of Ysabel Garcia.
Hello, everyone.
Ysabel works here at Explor as our... What title did you give yourself?
Junior GIS analyst.
Junior GIS analyst. Okay.
Yeah. And Jonathan, when you were on here last time, you were not an employee, and all of a sudden...
And here I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've been roped into...
the plan panned out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the reason why you were a guest, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. But Ysabel, people might be interested to hear how you kind of got your start with Explor and kind of your background and what led you to this point where you're a junior GIS analyst, because that's not your first degree, is it?
No, it's not. So I graduated in 2016 from U of C as a geologist, but times were tough, as everyone knows, and I couldn't get a job. Come 2017, Al found me on LinkedIn and wanted me in as a receptionist. So I started as a front desk at Explor in 2017. And then later on, I went back in school starting January 2018 to take my GIS program at SAIT. And now...
because we are dealing with acronyms, what does GIS stand for?
Geographic Information System. And now... come September 2018, I am a junior GIS analyst at Explor, and Chris is my mentor.
Right, and along the way, when we hired you to be the front desk admin here, what I really liked was that we were in this kind of early days of hiring GITs into roles that are not conventional GIT roles.
And what's a GIT again?
It's geoscientist in training, I guess.
That is correct.
So, but we'd been hiring all sorts of geoscientists, geophysicists, geologists, starting with Dan Lois into a field admin role, and then we hired several folks into kind of various field roles, and then yourself as a front desk admin. The idea being, hey, let's help geoscientists get a leg up and get a place in industry. But you missed an important step. You went to the field.
Yes, I did. That's right.
How was that experience of going to the field? Because we put you in a pretty tough labor position.
That's right. So I was at a trailer at first with up in Grand Prairie or Dawson. And that was pretty chill for a month. And then shortly after, I was asked if I wanted to be a part of Pinpoint, and Pinpoint being a new technology and something that's really groundbreaking in the seismic industry. Of course, I wanted to be a part of it. So I guess I just wasn't too aware of the labor that comes with it. But you know what? I feel like I came out pretty jacked after.
Yeah, that's right. I know that everybody was impressed because people that don't know you as we who work with you know you. You're not a huge person. Like, no. I'm a large person. I'm growing outward now, right?
Yeah. And I'm 5 feet tall, so it's kind of hard to imagine someone holding a drill, walking down lines, and
yeah, exactly. And so we were all super impressed with your work ethic and how you did that. And then, of course, that's what chased you back to school, I think. Is like, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore.
Low key. I enjoyed it for sure, but I kind of wanted something that was a bit more broad, and that if I don't know, time came, that I wouldn't be stuck just in the oil and gas industry. So I thought GIS was a nice leeway to get myself out there. Right,
and one of the things that I think, picking up from what Chris's experience was, being a PhD in geophysics, right, Chris?
Yeah, PhD.
And then what does PhD stand for?
Piled high.
Yeah, piled higher and deeper. I was trying to remember that. Yes.
But anyways,
philosophy doctorate.
Yeah, that's something like that. But anyway, so and your experience was that GIS was excellent for your career.
Oh,
as
absolutely.
Well.
It
Very
was,
complementary to the geosciences, and in a way, isn't geography a geoscience of sorts?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It is.
It's been one of the
Absolutely,
GIS doing that at SAIT, the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. Since we're dealing with acronyms, was actually probably at least the first, if not second, best decision I ever made, and especially in the school realm.
Yeah, and how's it? Because you went into the same program Chris did, right?
Yeah, I did. So coming into it, I met a lot of geologists and geophysicists that were actually taking the program as well, looking into diving into another industry that's not oil and gas. So
And it's and even if you're staying in oil and gas, my contention is that having that capability in GIS is highly complementary.
yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Like because you kind of have to know where you are, and I feel like a lot of geoscience these days is all around kind of mapping and projections and datums and layers and tying the surface to the subsurface and
That's right.
how you do that, right? So it's I think it's very complementary, and maybe allows you to move in a different direction. But by the way, geology, you can go out of oil and gas and geology too, right?
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I
right,
mean, I think you're talking about transferable skills, right?
Absolutely, transferable skills.
It's exactly what it is. I mean, that's how I find myself in this position, right? I mean, for the longest time, I've been a seismic data library guy, and here I find myself, working with a data management software program for seismic data. And transferable skills allow that transition.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, walk us through your latest few months, Jonathan, for people that don't know.
Been fascinating. So, been here a little north of, 3 months now? And
That's it?
Yeah,
Feels-
just 3 months.
feels
I know.
long.
It feels like an eternity. doesn't
God,
it?
it does.
It's good to have you here, though, for sure.
For those of you that don't know, Jonathan bribes the entire staff with food.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Freely
Delicious
admit it.
food.
Yes, that's right. Food is my currency of choice. But no, it's been a really interesting path, and to work with software and to understand the different sales cycles of which I've been previously used to is profoundly different. And in many ways, it's been a test test myself in some ways that, what I've done before, I have to call on things I've learned before that I may not necessarily have used most recently. And it's like a toolkit. I sharpen my tools on a day-to-day basis, just doing things differently and trying to manage the customer experience.
Well, and that's right. And so much of what we do in our daily lives here is, I think, just continuing to learn, right?
Yeah.
And finding new pathways, new horizons. I know that lately, both Chris and Ysabel, you guys have been working with one of our biologists on a question of wetlands, studying wetlands. Maybe tell us a little bit about that work.
So what we're doing is we're trying to find potential risk areas within a wetland dominated zone, which could help out seismic operations, knowing where they should stick their equipment and where they should avoid areas. And
What's the title of the paper you're working on?
how not to ruin your vibe.
Ruin, sink.
Well, I said ruin your vibe because it's
oh,
kind of like
ruin
a play
your
on
vibe.
word
Right,
with
I get
don't
it.
ruin my
I get it. I
vibe,
get
you
it.
know.
Don't harsh my mellow.
That's right.
See, this is where, now, doesn't that make you feel old, Chris? Doesn't that make you feel old?
Oh no! It's. I said to Isabel, get a cool title.
Don't ruin my vibe. I like
Yeah.
it.
Don't ruin my vibe.
Well, no, I got it from the help of you two, so yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't come up with that by myself.
Yeah. So that's interesting, and so that's kind of neat for me because it's kind of surficial geology meets
Biology.
GIS,
That's right.
biology. You have this sort of multidisciplinary question, and one of the things that was interesting to me is that we've dealt with this historically. I was telling Jonathan this over lunch.
Sure.
We've dealt with this historically, just in a kind of a traditional way around. Here's how you deal with muskeg, right? And here's how you move across that landscape. We all know how to do it. And then you look at the science behind it, sort of peer-reviewed papers. There aren't a ton. There are a few. I think Pierce was able to find a few. But
They were old, I believe.
They're pretty old,
70s.
like sort of
Yeah,
70s and 60s.
It's like they just-
and-
Yeah.
We got everything.
Yeah, and my theory is that if we could read Russian, which I'm not capable of doing, we'd get lots more papers. I think
Google
probably-
Translate.
Yeah, I know, but I think the Russians are probably ahead of us on this. But anyway, it's kind of this sort of space where you realize the science is a little bit behind us, or at least we haven't been able to find it.
Or how about this? In the since we're talking about multidisciplinary, it's people just got focused so much on the seismic, they just completely forgot about the surface.
Right. Or
we'll just leave it up to the crew.
Or people studying wetlands weren't thinking about, okay, how do I move something across this wetland?
Yeah.
They were mostly studying like the critters in the wetland or,
Right.
you know, these different aspects of it, right?
So isn't that amazing that historically with the acquisition of seismic, people haven't worried enough about the connectivity to the surface, which is everything, right? When you're actually at the acquisition point, it's everything. Everything that goes after that, you can only do so much to fix it.
Right. And I mean, I know you're writing a paper right now around the effect of the surface or the near surface on seismic, Chris. Like what's your paper that
it's on the surface consistent scalars for sources and receivers, and seeing if we can correlate that with the results from classification of color infrared imagery. Now, the problem is I've got so much statistics right now that I can't say whether it works or not. I assume so. You know, if you look on a map and compare the surface consistent scalars and the pretty pictures they make to the pretty pictures that are made by the classification of the color infrared, they look like they correlate. What look like they correlate and do correlate are completely different. I have the numbers. I just got to make the graphs and say, here we go. This is what we could do.
And then correlation isn't necessarily causation, so goes the saying. So you might have alignment and correlation, but that doesn't mean that one leads to the other necessarily.
Well, it's more of, is this repeatable? Can we do this? Like this, as far as I can tell, this is the first time someone's done this. So at least it'll be like, well, look, here are our results. And I'm hoping it's like obvious. Some of it may be obvious. For instance, planting your geophone in wet ground, you may wet-ish ground, you might get better coupling. Planting it in water may not be a good idea. Planting it in a treed area might be better, or might not be. That's sort of what we're looking at from the color infrared standpoint.
Right, and just a different angle on color infrared than Ysabel's work. So.
Yeah, just to go back to that, what wetlands is in relation to seismic, from a little Google search that you type or that you do, you can find that what is seismic's impact on wetlands, but you can't really see, or you don't really read a lot about what is wetland doing to, or what is wetlands in terms of safety of a seismic operation, and that's something that's really hard to find. So it's really good that we're doing that kind of study here at Explor and finding more about it.
Yeah, and it's something that we know about. Those of us who spent decades in the field, we know how to move across a wetland-ish, mostly.
Sort of.
Yeah. And sort of mostly with improving success. The first time we did it, probably in our careers, we weren't very good at it. And then as time went on, we sort of got to know and to be able to read the landscape a little bit and say, okay, well, it's been minus 30 for 3 weeks. I think we're good to go here, or not. And so some of the study that we're doing is going to lead to some pretty fascinating outcomes. I'm excited about it.
For sure, yeah.
Excited.
And now you may be in a position that you can help your crews almost live out in the field, right? Don't go here, go here.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than waiting for them to figure it out and
that's what
potentially run into a hazard.
And it's at the space. Sorry to interrupt, Chris, but it's at the space of this sort of multidisciplinary biology, because it turns out that wetlands, part of the way they function is they generate their own heat, by the way, from decomposition, right? And the chemistry of the wetlands affects how it freezes up in different environments. And these are the kinds of things that different disciplines would know, but stitching it all together is complex. And then we have to get into the whole field of meteorology, which we're in now, deep into meteorology, because we have our own weather station out there now that's sending us data every day locally, and then we're in the process of deploying a node that'll record the ground temperature at various depths. Maybe you didn't know this, you guys.
No, I heard you guys talking about it, whether or not
it's happening.
It's
happening.
Oh, cool.
So we're going to deploy that, and then that is also going to measure moisture content as a proxy for freezing. So as it freezes up, the moisture content drops to zero. We have ground temperatures correlated with moisture content, correlated with air temperatures and snow depth. And then your analysis of color infrared, and all of a sudden minds are going to be exploding all over. Our brains are going to be spattered all over the world.
we could run a NASA operation doing this stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Well,
Amazing.
and what's part of the enabling tech is that it's all there. Like, you can buy this stuff for a couple $1,000 or something. So it's kind of neat.
Very cool. Very cool.
there's something I'd like to add before I forget about it. Ysabel has taken the SATE course that I have. There is a very high possibility that Ysabel will graduate before me, because
see.
technically, and once she's finished the course she's taking right now, she is one course up on me and able to graduate, and I am not, because I have one last course that I have to do. What's called PLAR, which is, I can't remember what it stands for. Sorry, it's an acronym. Previous learning and something, and I have not applied for that yet. So Ysabel could graduate, and I stay here ungraduated.
No, you'll graduate. You'll graduate. We should do like
She'll have to sign off on your work.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah. We should do some sort of competition here. Whoever graduates first.
Yeah. Well, it's if I can. It's mine's just paperwork. Yours
That's right,
is actual work. Mine's just like, all right, I gotta make.
Well, no, you have a capstone project to do.
that.
Don't you?
Well, I'm skipping that. I'm PLARing that. That's the one that I'm.
You're saying that you've effectively done
in the
capstone.
space of me being here.
That's
we do a capstone project approximately every 6 months.
Okay.
Even more, like
Just
even,
in your regular stuff.
Oh
that
yeah,
you're
just
doing.
in the regular stuff, like all the programming.
And that
I've done.
counts. That works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I've
that's
talked to them.
That's
It's
good.
just I have to go through the process of proving that it does. Otherwise, I have to go back to school for 4 months. No.
Okay,
Wow.
these are my brows beating you, Chris.
Well, no matter who graduates the first, I promise not to do to you what happened when one of my daughters graduated, Haley, when she graduated at SATE. And one of her classmates, as she walked across the stage, I'm assuming it was her father. This was at the Jube. It was a big crowd. And as she walked across the stage, this young woman's father said, "It's a miracle."
That doesn't sound very good.
Oh yeah, that would be when I cross the stage. That'll be like the 5th time. Holy cow! Overeducated.
Yeah, but it's it's sort of what you said, Jonathan. That learning skills,
Learning
learning new
doesn't
Oh yeah, I should
skills.
say that. Let's
There's no
scratch that
such thing.
statement.
There's no such thing as overeducated. I mean, keep learning. That's the
absolutely.
spice of life, right? It's sort of like this whole thing we were talking about with wetlands. This is something I know intuitively, and I've done it for decades, and yet I can find myself learning new things because different questions are being asked about. It's something I thought I knew about. It's crazy.
I've learned more in the last 3 months than I have in ages.
Really? Just
Absolutely.
doing this new role and
Yeah,
doing
absolutely. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Learning new stuff all the time. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Didn't
and
think
you're operating, Jonathan, at the really the bleeding edge of tech today.
Yeah,
in
I
the
mean, it's
space
been
of
amazing, right?
Cloud
Yeah, working with the
computing
cloud,
and,
yeah, that's right, yeah.
machine learning, all these things.
Yes.
And actually, what are we finding so far? That a lot of this just boils down to nuts and bolts.
It does. It truly does. You know, there's an iterative process. It doesn't come. It's not intuitive, and there's a way to do it right, and there's a way to do it not so right. But it's been amazing working with the cloud. It turns out my parents were right. They always said my head was in the clouds.
And now it really is.
Yeah, it really is.
Along with everything else in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, at least the foreseeable future. It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
You were talking, and right now we're technology partners with AWS, with Amazon.
And
We're learning
Amazon-
that, and it's like drinking out of a fire
Oh,
hose.
God. Amazon is a labyrinth, an amazing labyrinth. Well, I think I referred to it today as the Cave of Wonders, and it's full of gold. It's amazing, truly amazing. So diverse, so many things you can do, and touch so many industries. And I mean, the cloud's in our daily lives anyway. And I think there's a bit of a split between how we have the cloud in our home life. It's not so readily accepted in our professional lives, and
It's going to have to be.
it has to be, right?
It's
Why,
just.
why do you think that is? Why is it so hard for people to accept?
Yeah, I don't
go
know.
on the cloud?
I think if you unwittingly work with the cloud, and it just rolls over you at home. Then there are a few consequences to it. But maybe the thought is something as simple as that. Well, if I am going to endeavour to embrace the cloud at work, embracing the cloud at home is not going to get me fired.
Right.
Right.
You're not being phased out at home.
Yeah, right.
Well, it was like that.
But I don't think it phases anybody out, you guys.
Well,
I think that the problems are actually more in the
more to do.
They're more in the realm of nuts and bolts. Think of your own office. It's in the space of how do I sort out all these drives, or how do I deal with all these old things that I've got, right? And what happened to us at home was we didn't have to actually take all of our VHS tapes and CDs and everything and read those into the cloud, right? Somebody else did that for us. And then one day we just turned it on and we're like, hey, how come I can't get the Beatles on Apple Music? Well, because Apple was suing Apple over the use of the word Apple until they finally solved that, and the Beatles was finally on iTunes. So it was done for us, right? And I think at work in the oil industry, we're recognizing, oh boy, Apple's not going to load all of our seismic data on the cloud for us. We actually have to do this ourselves, and you've been doing that.
Oh yeah, and it's ranged from super simple to a step too far, where, as you said, it's the Cave of Wonders. It was the snowball of doom that happened, really.
Yeah.
And then we went back to the snowball of happiness, which is super easy. And right now, uploading back to sending data to the cloud. And as you said, now one of our concerns right now is the data actually going up there? Because we're never.
It's ethereal, right? You can't actually touch it.
Exactly.
And the answer, of course, is yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But as I said to everyone when we're talking about whether or not the data is actually getting there, we don't even think twice about putting data on a thumb drive. We don't even. It's like pop it in your computer, put the files on, walk away. It's not like.
Is it there?
Is it there? Is it? Okay, double check it. Now double check it. Now we got to take it to the next computer. Is it really there?
And the irony of that is that as our friends at TapeArc, which is a company we've been working with out of Australia, who'll get a mention here.
Yep.
They've been doing a fantastic job of moving people from tape to the cloud. Okay. So if your answer is, well, I'm afraid of the cloud, and so I'm just going to let my data deteriorate on a tape, it's like that makes no sense whatsoever, right? It's sort of like eventually you definitely won't be able to read it off that tape. So actually you should move forward and put it up on the cloud.
You almost have a responsibility to migrate it to the cloud, and I'm going to use that time when one of our colleagues, Lee, brought in, I think it was his grandpa's wartime photographs.
This was around Remembrance Day.
Amazing.
This was a Remembrance Day thing, right?
Remembrance Day thing, yeah, and military photography from not only the UK taken by the Germans, but vice versa too. And those photos were fantastic, amazingly high-res photos taken. How many years ago? What is it? 80 years ago?
Well, this was fascinating because Lee, they were spy photos.
They were
German spy photos that ended up with our illustrious management system advisor. How did that happen?
It was his grandfather. No, it was his father's?
No, I think it was his grandfather.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Lee really, there's a responsibility to get these things saved and archived, because here we've got our acid-laden fingers all over
I didn't want to touch them. I'm like,
and they're going to go.
Cotton gloves, really.
And they're going to disappear eventually. So if you archive them and save them on the cloud, then they're around forever.
They're museum worthy, actually.
Yeah, it was fascinating, wasn't it?
You can't smell over a podcast, but if you're familiar with photo, not manipulation, photo, what do you call it? Development. It smelled like a developing room. Yeah. And that's from 80 years ago. It was...
Yeah, you guys were pretty enamored with it. I walked into that and I thought, oh, great, Jonathan's cooking again.
He was. Jonathan
meatballs
was.
Or something.
I think we did have meatballs.
No, it was stroganoff.
Are you sure?
Stroganoff.
It wasn't. So it wasn't the stroganoff that smelled like developing.
Maybe it was just me that smelled.
It was delicious stroganoff, I will say.
Well, I think people are also scared of going to the cloud, and that was at the SEG, the Society of Exploration Geophysicists, at the conference in Anaheim. Was people are investing in their own clouds, not some odd reason.
It's the weirdest thing.
And it's just there's this massive company called Amazon.
Or Google.
Amazing.
Or Microsoft.
Or Azure. And they're scared of letting their data go. I mean, I guess
it's sort of like, hold my beer. I'm going to keep up to Google.
Crazy.
I don't know. It might be a bad idea.
I don't know. It's like saying I'm going to create my own bank to run my own finances. No, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, and unless, I mean, there are companies of a certain heft.
Yeah.
There are companies that are so big, and some of them our customers are so big where it almost makes sense. You can almost say, like, and some of the big data owners, I mean, some of these guys have massive data libraries, right? It might make sense. Or on the other side of the equation, hey, I'm little company ABC. I don't need to solve world peace. I'm just going to put it on my computer. Like,
Yeah.
that works, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessary. Like, people still do have collections of LPs and still do have their CD collection. That's okay. You can have that. It's just at a certain scale, it's just going to be obvious that we all need to go in a different direction.
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Cloud is the way. It's amazing. And in terms of speed and in terms of the amount of information that you have at your fingertips, more than we've ever had. We have more information today than we ever had since the dawn of man.
No, and it's growing exponentially.
Yeah.
I mean, this podcast will add, I don't know,
Yeah,
a few
another-
gigabytes to
Another gig to the ether.
To the ether. People can go and get this data.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this
good.
is historical. It needs to be archived.
And it will be.
It will be.
for the rest of time. But you know what's interesting? Can I switch it up to movie?
Oh, click.
Can I
Yeah,
do that?
movies.
Now we need
Let's
like
talk
a
about
transition music. Movie time with
Yeah. Well,
Source Boys Podcast. Movie time.
so we were talking about legacy data quality, and this just kind of got me itching to jump in and talk about this experience we had yesterday evening, the 27th of December, when my sons and I went to a showing of They Shall Not Grow Old by Peter Jackson. So Peter Jackson
right.
of
That-
Hobbit and Lord of the Rings fame, right? This sort of New Zealand-based director, had been charged by the Imperial War Museum for the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I to do something kind of cool and special with all this archival footage they had, which had been, by the way, copied, duplicated, worn out, deteriorated. Kind of sounds like a lot of legacy, maybe seismic data tapes. And what he had done was look through literally 600 hours of footage that the Imperial War Museum gave him, hundreds and hundreds of hours of audio recordings that were done decades ago, by the BBC or something, and by I think maybe the Imperial War Museum. And then what he did was he saw that every single bit of film had been warped or scratched, and so if you think about World War I film that you've seen, it's that kind of herky-jerky, too fast, people
Grainy,
walking really
yeah.
quick,
Yeah.
scratchy, grainy. And so he took that footage, and I won't wreck it for those of you, because I hope they show it more in theaters. It's a phenomenal experience. If they do it, you need to go see it. It will win probably an Oscar for Best Documentary.
You can see previews online, so you're not going to give much away when you say.
Yeah, and it's kind of been, there's no, I mean, we all know how World War I went,
Right.
So there's no mystery there. But what's phenomenal about this is he takes that old footage and then restores it and colorizes it.
I was going to. Was it
And one more-
colorized?
But
And
not
one more
colorized.
step.
Like we've all seen colorized stuff that's kind of This was colorized by like obsessive compulsive colorizers that literally looked at
Called
the
a
uniform.
computer.
Yeah. No, but it was a computer, but it was also a lot of human intervention for the colors of the German uniforms, the colors of the
Artists.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
you
but
know,
Yeah.
like
get,
and they had
get
to
to the
match
next part.
it.
That's the real cool part.
And then they set that to the voices of the vets, and then played it at the right speed and zoomed in. What am I missing?
lip reading.
Oh yeah, and that's right. They
yeah.
also did lip reading to see what they were saying. Then, and this is how obsessive this guy is, which is pretty much how you should do it. They would look at the uniform and they'd say, "Oh, that's the Bedford such and such," and so they'd go, "They're from, I'm making this up now. I don't
Bedford, maybe.
know. Bedford, but is that Sussex or what is it? I don't know. But
Bedford.
And they would
it's
do
in
the
a part of England.
Bedfordshire.
Yeah, Bedfordshire.
Bedford.
You know what,
Bedfordshire.
Jonathan? I guess you
Down
would know.
Bedford
Okay,
Lane.
we have our local but and then they would find people with that accent of that age to say what the soldiers were saying
That's amazing, eh?
in the movie.
That was the creepy part. I shouldn't say.
Well, it was amazing
It's
because
just-
and then the Foley artists that they had. So he did things like for the artillery shells, he actually went out to a firing range in New Zealand, had them set up 105 millimeter howitzers, set up a sound studio in the field, and recorded the sound of shells whistling overhead
Holy cow.
for real.
Can't imagine.
Okay, and then the sound of shells going off in the field for real. And then he has, it turns out, Peter Jackson, a bunch of World War I artillery pieces Don't ask me how. So then the sound of the piece closing and clamping before it's fired, all of that is authentic and real. And so you're watching this, and it's really like a time travel thing.
Wow.
All of a sudden, and this theater that I was in, absolutely packed. A former prime minister was a row in front of us. Our next premier, I hope, was just down.
You keep
the
on
row
running
from
into
us.
these people.
Yeah,
You go to special viewings, don't you?
yeah. No. This was it was one of only 2 viewings. It was the only one.
Oh, okay.
And,
That makes it easy.
And so, but just a phenomenal experience. And I mean, when they get into some of the stuff that I won't ruin it for folks that go, it's a little bit harder to take. It was an awful war. Just the kind of this sort of sweaty silence settles over the crowd, and you're
I
just
can
like,
believe it.
oh my goodness,
Lest
this was
we forget.
awful. Like, yeah, you think you know, but you don't know.
No,
and,
God,
and,
no.
and all of a sudden it's in full color, up close.
Amazing, right?
Not good.
Really
not good.
amazing.
But yeah, amazing. So, anyways, I think that's an Oscar contender. I think that
Cool.
is a
Probably.
that is
Well,
going to
Peter
be
Jackson.
like best documentary or
Yeah,
something. Probably. Is there another one? I don't know.
Let's go around the table. What's on your list of other movies to see?
Go ahead, Ysabel.
I haven't been watching a lot of movies lately, but as a millennial, yes. I'm more of a Netflix person, so I barely go to the theaters anymore. And recently I've been into this show called Money Heist, or in Espanol I think it's called La Casa de Papel. And it's about a group of I guess bad people going into the Royal Mint of Spain and plotting to print more money and taking about 2 billion
Nice.
euros and getting away with it. But they're antagonists, but at the same time you find yourself cheering for them, and they don't want any harm done upon the victims or
Is it
their
in Spanish?
hostages. Yeah,
It
it's
is
in
in
Spanish,
Spanish, yeah.
but there
I've
is a
seen-
dubbed version.
Right.
I prefer to see it in Spanish and then listen to it in Spanish and just have the captions.
Do you understand Spanish?
A little bit. I'm Filipino, so
Yeah.
a lot of our Tagalog words are influenced by Spanish words
Yeah.
for sure. But it's a really good show. I would recommend it to everyone.
And for the record, if you steal 2 billion euros, harm is being done to others.
Okay, that's right.
just so you know, just so we're all clear on the morality. of
Yes,
this.
it's not a victimless crime.
No.
Sorry,
It's
not.
like all of Europe hurts.
Just inflate the market.
Yeah.
But what I appreciate though is the whole anti-hero thing. Those are
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah, for
Tony
sure.
Soprano, right? The whole Godfather thing, Goodfellas. Some of my favorite movies are all anti-heroes.
Right.
You find yourself cheering for a bad guy.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
Oh,
Breaking
yeah, that's
Bad.
right.
is another,
Breaking
that's another
Bad was
great example.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely fantastic.
Wanted to be a chemist when I watched that show.
I guess it was.
Isabel?
Yeah, I'm
Is there
just
something we
joking. Nope.
need- Yeah.
But-
Cool.
I, if I'm next on I saw with my kids Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse,
Ooh, how's that?
which I don't have much time for movies, and I haven't seen a Marvel film since Avengers, so I'm like way behind on their whole universe of movies that they've put out. I wasn't really expecting much from this because I've watched a lot of cartoons, and I usually
This is a cartoon. It's
it's
not
a
a
It's
large.
anim- no, it's animated,
It's
yeah.
animated,
And there are multiple spider people.
Yes, and I've never really liked Marvel cartoons. DC makes a mediocre movie but an awesome cartoon. And I went into this going, this will be all right. And I walked out going, holy cow, that was amazing.
Really?
I was blown away. And my wife, she's not into any of the superhero films and afterwards she's like, that was really good. I was like, whatever ratings it gets, and I'm sure it's high, it deserves it. It was well worth.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was.
How's it doing in the Golden Globe nominations? Is it up there? I don't know anything about this.
I don't.
movie.
It's if you're not. Some of the stuff was lost on me. I mean, I collected comics when I was young, but when I entered university, I ran out of money, and so I couldn't quite do it. But it was absolutely. I knew it was going on. The kids loved it. It was. We went to the 3D but after a while you don't really notice the 3D, so it's it's kind of weird, but ultimately whatever rating, I'm sure it's up there.
I just checked 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I didn't even look at the ratings. I just knew it was on, and we were looking for something to watch, and it was like between Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph Wrecks the Internet. That's right. And I love Wreck-It Ralph. It's actually pretty good. And then we're like, let's go see Spider-Man. And I was like, this will be all right. It's Marvel cartoon, whatever.
I think they might have released it because they want to hype up the new Infinity Wars movie, right? Or the
for
Avengers
me, like
movie.
I said, my superhero or Marvel universe started or hasn't done any since Avengers, which is probably like 6 or 7 years old now.
Okay, so just breaking news. It's been nominated for Best Animated Film at the Golden Globes.
Oh, absolutely! It was
alongside a couple others. I'm just checking it out. So
a compelling story, funny. Stan Lee it's probably his last cameo.
It would pretty much have to be.
Yeah. Well, unless they've recorded something else. But he also did a cameo in the DC cartoon. What was it called? The Teen Titans Go. You ever saw that one?
No, I missed that.
Very cool.
It was, that was good. But I can't really give away anything about the movie. There's nothing to give away.
But a big recommend.
I walked in not really knowing what it was, other than there was different Spider-Mans in it, and then walked out going, wow, that was really good. My kids are like, we should go see it again. I'm like, I'm not spending another $60 to see it. Let's just wait till it comes on Netflix or
you go
DVD.
on Tuesdays, Chris.
Yeah, well, no, this was Sunday, so it was, and in the reclining seats. Oh, that was nice.
That is the business, isn't it? Hey, yeah. So the reclining seats.
By the way, somebody told me yesterday you can go to movie theaters now and have a beer somewhere.
Definitely in Australia. I know that could be done.
This is here in Calgary. Somebody said they went and they bring it to your chair, apparently, in this VIP movie theater.
Oh, that was totally in Australia. I never tried it, but it was like you'd have them bring dinner.
We go to the sort of the recliners. We went to Landmark, and on Boxing Day, actually, we went to the movies. And, you can buy your seats online. You get your assigned seats. It's a lazy boy chair. It is a fantastic way to go see a movie. And what's to say you can't bring, a Starbucks Go Cup with... maybe not necessarily coffee inside.
I usually
coffee
sneak
and
those
Baileys.
in, right? You bring a big bag with you to
that's right.
sneak all the snacks in. That's what I do.
So really, you don't like paying $7 for popcorn?
I don't feel like it. I don't feel like giving my money to the movie theaters.
But what did you watch on Boxing Day?
Well, now that my children are grown, I miss going to see kids' movies with them. But they're game enough to come with me as grown children. And we went to see Mary Poppins Returns on. And
I've heard good things about that.
It was amazing.
One, by the way.
It was really well done. They really captured the essence of the original in terms of its scoring and the music. And boy, Emily Blunt can sing and dance. She can sing like a bird. She's no one can out Julie Andrews, but she does an amazing job.
Were the cameos? A cameo by Julie Andrews?
There wasn't, but there was Dick Van Dyke was in it. I was amazed to see him.
Yeah, he was in a movie a few years ago, and I was like, he's still alive?
That's exactly what I
said.
Holy
cow!
Yeah, he's alive, and he's dancing.
By the way, that one has also been nominated by Golden Globes.
I can believe it.
The Mary Poppins, best motion picture musical or comedy.
It was really good, and many other cameos that you would recognize too. So it was just beautifully done, and it was just a romp and escapism.
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's
just fantastic.
Nice
I've
heard good things about it, actually.
Yeah.
My 16-year-old son is saying we need to see Mary Poppins, and I'm sort of like,
that
was a bigger concussion than we thought.
Well, it must be on a list of movies to see. I would assume.
Well, anytime you have the Golden Globes, and this is when my attention always turns to the Oscars, because the Golden Globe nominations are always a nice proxy for the Oscars.
For sure.
The Golden Globes have more categories, so you'll have a weeding out of folks from the Golden Globes to the Oscars, but it's a good indicator.
Right.
And often the winners of the Golden Globes are also winners or ultimately pretty successful at the Oscars as well. So.
Oh no. I was just making sure we're still recording, and we are.
Okay, good.
How awkward would it be if we weren't recording at all this whole time?
Yeah, we're just having an office meeting.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody's checking it, Chris. Thank you.
It looked. We're at 39 minutes.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
Good.
very good. Very
Good
good.
stuff. Yeah.
So what's next on your list, Al, to go see?
Well, my son's trying to make it Mary Poppins. He went and saw Vice, which is which he said. So my son, who's, as those of you that have heard me talk about, he is a pretty astute movie goer, analyst of movies, and he claims that Christian Bale's likely to win, based on his assessment, likely to win for his performance as Dick Cheney in Vice.
It's amazing
Okay.
how he transforms himself.
Yeah, he actually got fat.
Yeah.
And
Oh, really?
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because he
It's
got
incredible.
thin in
Batman?
the
No,
mechanic.
Yeah.
He was super thin in the mechanic.
Yeah.
And
The
in
fighter, he was thin.
And then there's another one. He got jacked.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's right.
now he's a big fatso apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did it on
Vice
purpose.
looks good, though. I want to see Vice.
Yeah,
That's
Vice.
some
So
discipline.
Vice, but the problem is my son went and saw it without me. So I maybe I'm going to be that guy alone in the theater with my $7 popcorn, taking this in. So that's on the list for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody yet, and I think I should see it in the theaters. Although, kind of mixed. Some people sort of saying, And then I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But,
So interesting how there was a train of thought that with the advent of Netflix, with the advent of videos at home, even if we don't want to go back further, I was left with the thought when I was at the cinema on Boxing Day, which was packed and people running around everywhere, that the digital delivery of movies has done anything but herald the end of the movie industry. These cinemas were packed. Were absolutely packed.
well, they're
And
figuring it out.
it's a
Comfy
thriving-
chairs,
yeah.
big
And it's
screens.
a thriving industry, right? With more money in it than ever.
I don't want to say it's an event. It's a
An occasion.
an occasion to go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not. I could have watched. Waited a month or two, watched Spider-Verse at the theater, but the kids would have been bouncing off the walls. It wouldn't have been nothing real special about it. It'd have been like, that was a pretty good movie, but this way it was like reclining,
Yeah.
popcorn,
Yeah.
Got the
Fantastic.
full experience, and
Yeah.
walk away happy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
It's wonderful.
expensive. Like at $60, I was like, "What?"
Well,
Oh,
actually,
man.
the day we went, we did go to the early show, but it was $68 for 7 of us. That is a heck of a deal.
With food and everything?
No.
No.
No. But like I used to go to, and I still would, go to the, like a Flames game or something, Calgary
Right.
Flames, go
Yeah.
to the Saddledome. You don't get one ticket for 60.
No, it's true.
And it's a different experience. Obviously, love
Yes.
the Flames,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
different. So it's pretty good value, as you
Oh, yeah.
point out.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic value.
Until you buy the popcorn or
Yes.
the sodas,
That's right.
and then you get raked over the
Yes.
coals.
A nice big bag
Well.
of fat and salt. It's a good job they have an AFib there. Or DFib, brother.
Do they have a defib?
I think they
Oh, I
do.
They probably
everybody-
should.
They must
Do
do.
we should? We have one here, I see.
No, we don't.
Oh,
This
how
is
come Lee isn't all over that?
good question.
We should
Lee, if
have
you're
a
listening to
defib.
this podcast,
Don't listen.
actually that responsibility falls on me. So maybe that's
it's not a
maybe that's a
regular-
Q1 2019 exercise.
There we go. Business. There was the office meeting right there that we
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
may have not have recorded. Or
Safety
we did.
meeting.
Safety meeting.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, we're at 43 minutes. Is there anything else we want to jib-jab about?
Isabel, you must have something else for us.
I don't know. I'm kind of a quiet person, so being in the talk show today is a little
talk show?
scary for me. Or a podcast. Sorry.
Talk show.
Podcast.
What, are you watching TV?
Sorry, podcast is a little scary for me, but I'm happy to have done this with you guys. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you do this. I'm glad you stepped up and did it.
It's fun.
Showing courage.
It's fun.
Jonathan, thanks for coming back again.
Thank
It's,
you.
Oh, are we
It's great to
doing
have
the
you.
We're
outro
gonna wrap
music?
I guess
And
so.
we
We
should-
never got into politics, but
I don't
Happy
think
New
there's.
Year's, everyone.
Yes,
Oh,
we should
how about
wish
that? It's because this
everybody
is the
a Happy New Year.
Yeah, if
So
you're
just
listening.
a happy New Year
Wait.
thing.
Chances are they're going to listen to this after New Year's.
Well, yeah, maybe.
So here,
Well, no, will they? So today's the
I'm checking
28th.
if I get this out in the next hour, yes, it will be before New Year's.
You're not coming in on the 31st?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just have to remember to do it because that's just what always happens. Like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, and it's 3 days later. Oh no!
I know it's not like you don't have 1,000 other
Yeah,
things
yeah,
to
really.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that was great. Thanks.
Thank
And,
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us again, Jonathan, and thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us for the
Thank
first
you.
time, Isabel. And It's been an interesting and thought-provoking discussion.
And now we wait for the music to kick in with the volume up.
I got it. It's going. I can hear it in my headphones.
There we go.
There it is. It's coming.
All right, and that was the Source Points podcast. And thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Chris.
And I'm Alan Chatney.
And until next time, keep rocking. All right.